Welcome. I'm Alan Cohen, and this is the Quarantine Interviews. Today, I have a really terrific musician, a drummer, an educator, a product designer. He's played with numerous artists all around the world, including Patti LaBelle, Gloria Gaynor, Glenn Burton. He's also played on numerous Broadway shows, including A Chorus Line, Footloose, Grease, Newsies, and Dreamgirls. Many more to come. We're going to talk right now with a great drummer. His name is Pat Petrillo. I'd like to welcome Pat Petrillo. How are you?
What's up? How you doing, Al?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm still in quarantine. My beard's getting longer, but it's all good. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, healthy, and everything's working out great. Great, and we're just rolling with things and making the best of it. And I hope everybody out there is doing well and safe, and we'll get through this all together for sure. And
Right.
Thanks to everybody that's helping out on the front lines, and if you're a doctor or nurse, EMT, whatever you are, thank you so much for everything you do. Teachers out there who are educating our kids in this tough time and coming up with creative ways to keep them, educated and schooled, and everything that you're doing. We thank you all so much.
Great. That's a beautiful intro, right? You got to shed light on these dark moments, but it seems like we're getting closer to the end, I'm hoping.
I think so. Give it a couple months, and we'll be at least trying to see the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, so we'll get back to that, because I do want to talk about how it's affecting you and your teaching, how you probably are doing more online. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, I want our audience to know a little bit about you, because you have such a vast profession and career that let's just give some insight of how you got started in the industry.
Wow, it has been a long time. I would say since I got back from college, I went to school. I got a scholarship to Morehead State University in Kentucky, and I went there for 4 years and got my bachelor's in music education and played in a jazz band, a jazz vocal ensemble, variety of different things, percussion ensemble. Just a myriad of things, and really helped me a lot. I went back in a year and got my master's, and got that. Yeah.
Directly into your master. Were you going to go straight into it, or were you going to take a break?
No, I just wanted to go right into it and get my master's. And I've been playing obviously since I was a little boy, probably about 5 years old or what have you, and just played along to my Beatles records. I have a couple older brothers, and my oldest brother is about 16 years older than me, so he had the records, and he had a little band in the basement, and I would just hang out and listen and watch them. And I got turned on to the Beatles, very, very early age, and that was my earliest inspiration. And I would just learn those beats, learn the lyrics, learn the vocals, learn all the songs. I would listen to it nonstop. I had all the records. So that's how I got started. And I just played, and by the time I was maybe 8 or 10, heard my first James Brown record. So I literally went from Ringo to Jabbo Starks or Clyde Stubblefield in a day, learned how to play Doing It to Death and Cold Sweat and all those different, great grooves and songs. So I grew up in a real, diverse area, New Jersey and Central Jersey and New Brunswick area. And I listened to a lot of different kinds of music growing up. And so that's how I got started in playing. And and I still, listen to all those records now, to this day. Earth, Wind & Fire, Stevie Wonder, of course, all my Beatles stuff. But it was quite a great variety of music that I grew up listening to.
Great. Now, you said when you were in college, were you in the marching band also? I think you mentioned to me.
Yeah, I did marching stuff quite a bit. I was, I never took formal lessons when I was younger. And my mom, rest in peace, she wanted to get me involved because my brothers were older and out of the house. I kind of grew up sort of an only child in some ways, by the time I was 7, 8 years old, they were gone, So they said, I want to get you in lessons. I see, do you have this thing you're playing and you love it? And and I really wasn't having it. I didn't want to do it. But she got me involved in drum corps. She drugged me to it, and come on, you're going. So I was in a local drum corps, parade corps. Learned how I learned my rudiments and all that stuff, and I still couldn't really read because they taught by rote a lot. So I learned that way, and none of my parents were musicians. I didn't come from necessarily like a big musical background. I just had the dust, I guess.
But none of your siblings either were into music?
Well, like I said, my brother in front of me played in a garage band. He knew all 3 or 4 chords, and you know, they had a good time. But none of them really, my parents at all. So I think people ask me, you know, why the drums? You know, it's like it chose me, and I'm glad it chose me because it's been my saving grace, I guess, to you know, for my career. But I was involved in a marching activity a lot, and that kind of got me involved in drum corps. I did a lot of DCI drum corps solo things, and was in a few different drum corps, and that got me a scholarship to college. So I was really happy for that. That was part of the reason why I got a little bit of help getting to college. So it was a really interesting thing. You know, it kind of parallels if you look at what Steve Gadd, you know, his career, you know, he was involved in drum corps too. And I noticed like Billy Cobham was involved in drum corps. A lot of great drummers who came up, not that I'm a great drummer, but a lot of great drummers over the years have been involved in
humility, man, humility.
And I'm just saying that it helped your technique a lot in terms of drumming.
You're playing with a lot of people, you're all doing rudiments and all that. So being in position and being really in sync with numerous you know, drummers at the same time.
That's true. I think, you know, the drum corps thing really helps your ears. You have to listen to other musicians.
With all those toms around your body and all that stuff.
I played tenor drums a little bit, but I mostly played snare drum.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, going to school and being and learning how to read and ear training and playing in different ensembles, like I was saying, that really helped get my footing in drum set. I mean, I played a lot of marimba and vibes and timpani, but by the time I was a sophomore year or so, they really, you know, my instructor, Mr. Otis, thank you, Frank Otis, if you're watching this, got me, you know, going with drum set lessons and, you know, getting coordination in the Chapin book and basic styles. So that was that. When I graduated, I moved back here to Jersey, and I just wanted to continue learning and growing in drum set and just get better at it. You know, I didn't know what direction my career was going to take, so I actually ended up getting a high school teaching job right out of college.
That's terrific. Yeah.
So I did that. And
where was that? That was in Jersey?
It's in Jersey, yeah. I was really fortunate. I interviewed. I got an assistant director's job. I was right out of school, got some money flowing. But in the meantime, what I would do is I'd teach school till about 3 or 4 o'clock, get in my car and drive up to New York, and I started studying at Drummers Collective.
Oh, sure, with Rob Wallace. I did it.
Rob, yeah, and all those guys at the Collective. And I studied with Frankie Malabe, Afro-Cuban and then Brazilian stuff with the Duca de Fonseca, as well as Rob Wiener, who helped me a lot. I took classes with them in private lessons, and Ricky Sebastian was one of my teachers. I took master class, started studying privately with Peter Erskine, and then I met Hank Jaramello, and that's our connection, me and you.
Oh, that's right. Hank Jaramello was the drummer from A Chorus Line.
He was one of the drummers for A Chorus Line, and so when I started studying with him, and he started putting charts up there, and we were doing in our lessons and classes, like he'd put up like Gino Vanelli tracks, he put up jingles, and then he started putting up stuff from A Chorus Line, and he saw that I could read, and he started asking me about my background. I told him I was, you know, just graduated college, and I want to get into the scene a little bit, and he basically took me under his wing a little bit, you know, and he said, hey, you want to come check out A Chorus Line? And I said, sure, I'd love to. So I just went in the pit and started watching, and I had no idea he was going to ask me to play eventually, you know. So he said, hey, you want to do this? And that was like a fork in the road. You say yes, then you have to do it. If you say, oh, I don't know, then you're not going to get called again.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's such a phenomenal, you know, opportunity at the time.
It was great, and he gave me a lot of trust, and he said, here's the book, start learning, and met, you know, Father Alphonse, who was the conductor, and all the guys in the pit were great, and I think that's where we met probably first.
First in the pit. I used to also play chorus line. I did the international tour for a year,
Cool.
and I played on Broadway on and off for about 10 or longer years. I was with
Great.
a guy named George Davis.
Of course.
A great song, Tell It Like It Is.
Yep. And he and our connection with George is George used to occasionally we'd hook up because he lived not far from where I was living in Jersey, and we'd come together up to go to the shows. So he'd pick me up and we'd drive in, and so you know, it was just a lot of great guys, and everybody was Dorian McGee was one of the main drummer, and he was very kind to give me a lot of work and call, and
A whole different sensibility to him. Very smooth around the drum set. Yeah, very cool sound.
Very, very much so. And everybody was great. So I had a great time with that. That was my first break show thing, you know.
So did that lead you obviously to the other shows that we talked about in your intro?
Yeah, I subbed, and a lot of great drummers started, using me to sub, and I appreciate their opportunity I did Grease quite a bit, and I did Footloose quite a bit, and then I did a tour of Dreamgirls that was supposed to come back to Broadway, and never did. We did a bunch of cities, and they were out, and then we got stuck in, I don't know, upstate New York somewhere. It's like there's no house and ready, and then it just fizzled out, which would have been cool, because I would have had this show to do Dreamgirls again.
I met you back in the Grease pit because I was the contracted guitarist at Grease with Rosie O'Donnell. We had great stars that came in: Al Jarreau, Mickey Doe.
Oh yeah,
all the top stars.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was great. So you were brought in, I think, maybe by Vince Fay.
Well, I know I'm not Vince, although I played with Vince in a lot of records with Ed Hamilton with Vince, but I did. The drummer was
Norbert.
With Norbert Goldberg, and Norbert, who I met, who he was also subbing a chorus line, and so thanks Norbert if you're watching for asking me to play, because we did quite a bit. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, terrific. All right, so then, and I always find that subbing is a lot of pressure, because that day you come in, it's the first time you're playing it, the first time you sub, you have to sound like the guy that went through all the dress rehearsals, all the previews, 3 months of playing on Broadway, this and that, and your first downbeat, when the conductor gives you a downbeat, you have to play it as well as him.
You gotta sound like him, or her, whoever's drumming, the best you possibly can, and it's not about you. It's always about the music, of making the parts right, and being under a baton is a thing. Not a lot of people can be under a baton, because nowadays it's not like it was then, whereas you had to be on the tip, as they say, right? So you had to be on it. There wasn't not a lot of click going on.
Right.
Back then, it evolved into that, but initially it was like, you're looking in that monitor, and you better be on the tip, So,
you, drummer, of course, you're holding the backbone of the entire orchestra down. So
and that's the subbing thing, is the subtleties, because you don't, you might have got a note that say, hey, this section, we're slower now, so they put the little eyeglasses on there. Be careful, So you get to that section, you're like, ooh, okay, this is different than the last time I played. So you just gotta adapt, and then it's just about knowing and people, and being. It's more about who you are as a person too, and not attitude and all that stuff, and just being a good person, be a nice guy, and just be thankful for coming in and realize it's their house. It's not your house. It's a different thing altogether.
That's a very good point, because you are taking over, and of course you want to shine, but you have to know that the drummer that was there has the chair, and you have to kind of really fit into his footsteps at the time.
And, you know, it's funny. I've known a lot of people that have subbed a lot of years that never had their own show, and it's like, I mean, I never had my own show, but if it ever happens, great. But I mean, but it's really sort of out of your control. I mean, you can only do what you can do. You can play. People know how you play. They know what you sound like. They know you can do what you have done. Then it just becomes a matter of who you know, sort of, and who, you know, the quote unquote, like, sort of politics of it in some ways, of who the conductor wants, and that's not even about maybe who the contractor wants. Maybe it's who the conductor wants. You know, work with this drummer or this person a certain show, and well, I want to bring this person in. So it's just kind of like that, I guess.
Right. So you've done a numerous shows. You also mentioned a bunch of artists that you work with, Patty.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and that sort of came through meeting this gentleman, Ed Hamilton, who I'm sure you know Ed. I did all Ed's records.
Phenomenal guitarist. I think I brought him into the Broadway scene. He played Grease for Me from Vince Fay.
Look at that.
That was his first Broadway show. He's remarkable.
So shout out to Ed. So me, Ed, Vince, kind of like were the backbone of his group, and we recorded a lot in Philly at his studios. We put out a bunch of records on Telarc Jazz and stuff, and so through him we were playing at Havana's in New Hope a lot down in Pennsylvania, and which is where I actually met my wife, believe it or not. And so we were playing a lot. He brought in a percussionist named Jose Rossi. And Jose is legendary Philly percussionist, and he played with Patti LaBelle for years and years and years, and also was in Weather Report in the band with Victor and Omar. He was on Procession and a bunch of other records. So Jose would come in and play with us a lot, and we just, like, here's that lock that we just had from day one, because I, you know, studied, like I was saying, with Frankie Malabe all those years, and playing, you know, all this stuff. So now I can play Mozambique and know what it's all about, you know, and know where it's coming from. And me and Jose just locked. And then when the gig opened up, he recommended me for the gig. Funny story time. You know, want to hear a funny audition story?
I like fun. Come on, loosen it up.
So the audition was like, he was like, okay, I'm giving them your number, along with, you know, everybody else has had somebody too, right? So everybody's got a guy, right? So there was about 5 of us. So he said, be at the warehouse in Philly at X time and X day, whatever. So I showed up, and I was pretty early. I mean, I was at least 45 minutes early, and I pulled up, and it's like, all right, nobody's here yet. And still nobody was there right about the time I was supposed to be there, and nobody's there. And I'm like, is this the right place? Well, that's the right street. This is before GPS or anything. I'm making sure I know where I'm at, you know. So anyway, they eventually showed up, and just big open warehouse, no soundproofing, no nothing. They did have a drum riser. So they said, bring your drums. So I was like, okay, bring my drums, because it wasn't in a rehearsal studio. It was at her warehouse. So you had to bring your stuff. Yeah. So we all 5 guys, we all had our drums, but I got there first. So I got on the stage. Then the other guys were kind of next to the stage on their drum sets. It was so weird. So we're just setting up all our stuff, and we're sitting there, and we're all going to leave. And I'm thinking they're going to call us in one at a time, right? So the MD comes in, who actually passed away a few years ago, and he goes, all right, we're saying, well, who's going to go first? He goes, no, everybody stay in the room. We're like, okay.
Puts the pressure on.
And he goes, okay, we're all in the room. We're all in here. I'm on the stage, and there's like 2 other guys on each side. He's like, okay, we're going to do Lady Marmalade. Ready? So he goes, you play the kick drum part, you play the hi-hat part, you play the snare drum part, you don't do nothing, and you give me a little fill-in only when I point to you. Say, okay, here we go. Count it off. 1, 2, like the kick drum. What? Okay, here it goes. You know, the other guy, tap, 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 the hi-hat part, you know. And so it was the wackiest thing, I mean, that I ever experienced in my life. And I'm like, how the hell is he ever going to figure out who he wants? But then I realized he's the MD. So if you don't follow his directions, he's trying to filter out right away who can follow directions, who thinks this is stupid, who's going to, give him attitude right
away. Yeah.
Right out of the gate.
Wow. That's a wild.
So wild, dude. So anyway, there's at least out of the 5 of us, a couple of them really didn't know the right beat to Lady Marmalade. How are you going to go to an audition for Lady Marmalade and not know the beat for Patti LaBelle and not know how to play that beat? It was crazy. So anyway, a couple of the guys right away, within 10 minutes, he told them to leave, but we went through the process and I got the gig. So I ended up playing with her for a minute, and we did a few one-offs, mini tour, and then this started like Gloria Gaynor. I met her through another bass player. Met her through the bass player recommended me. So it's just recommendations, and then after a while, I just want to put my own thing together, which leads me to my project, really.
Project. Tell us about the project.
So
please. Oh, you can.
My band. I just felt as if it was time for me to, I always wanted to do my own, my own group, and I wanted to do like a horn band kind of thing. And the impetus for that, I wanted to kind of go back to my roots with the Beatles and do some great arrangements of Beatles classics for a horn band, and say, ones that lend themselves well to horns, So I did a little campaign. I did a Kickstarter, and a lot of people were just really kind and gracious and raised enough money for me to actually go to Abbey Road and be in Studio 2 for 2 days.
You actually recorded where they were.
Be in the spot where my man Ringo was, man. It was a fantastic feeling to be there, and then use the actual pianos that they used on the records, the Challen and what they call the Mrs. Mills, like the Lady Madonna and Obla Di Obla Da. So we came up with this little project here.
The album cover. Oh, that's great. Wait, don't put it down. That's perfect. Right where you were. Right where you are.
So
there you are, crossing Abbey Road right now.
Yep. So it's the NYC Big Rhythm Band is the name of the group, and we took this picture that
a little to the side of your head. There you go. I can see that. Yeah.
And the bus just happened to be there, and then of course we photoshopped New York City in the background there, so that's a little juxtaposition.
That's beautiful.
So the Abbey Road sessions, we did. We were there for 2 full days. We tracked the horns and everything here, and I did rough drums here, but then we just sent the files there. So we recorded drums and piano over there.
So you hired a piano player from out in
from the UK. Yeah, and he also played guitar. This cat named Duncan Maitland, who is a great singer-songwriter, keyboard player, guitar player. So we did Magical Mystery Tour, Lady Madonna, Tell Me Why, which is a really cool up-tempo shuffle. We did Martha My Dear with a nice jazz version of that. Savoy Truffle, Sexy Sadie, Obla Di Obla Da, Gotta Get You Into My Life. And then I actually also did an original by Glenn Burtnick called Local Hero that I actually recorded with him a bunch of years ago, and I asked him if he would be so kind to let me record it there, and he was like, most definitely. So that's on the record. It's on Palmetto Records, based in in the city, but it's on. You can get the CD on Amazon as well as the digital download on Amazon. Just NYC Big Rhythm Band, and radio promotion is Powderfinger Promotions. It's now on about 82 stations.
Right now.
All around the country.
What was the release date on this?
The release date, I mean, the soft release was probably in January, late December, January. So the radio promotion didn't really kick in till late February into March. So it's really March, April, May. We've done a 10-week radio promotion. It's been gaining 10 stations a week, pretty much. And it's a little over 80 stations, college radio, jazz stations, It's number 23 record in the relics.com jam band top 25 there, with like Lettuce and some of these other great groups, you know, that are in that jam band thing, Wolfpack. So it's cool. It's a fun record. It's the record, you know, give my homage to Ringo, but also kind of just put my little spin on it.
Yeah.
And
I heard you played me before the version of Lady Madonna, which was sensational. It had such a Creole feel to it, Louisiana feels.
we put a little more swing to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
And with a New York vibe and you know, using the actual pianos, you know, when you hear the record, you know, hopefully we tried to capture, you know, the sound of the original, but bring it up to date a little bit, you know, and just, it's more than an homage. It's really just like a reinvention, you know, just a reinvention of it. And, but Ringo is the biggest influence in my drumming life, other than, I would say, Clyde and Jabbo, Steve Gadd, Zig Modeliste.
I don't want to go so far back in our conversation, but because you were working at the Drummers Collective, you also taught there too.
Taught a collective for many years and did my first, So I guess that's a good thing. We can kind of bounce into that, the teaching aspect. And
So you have your own band together now. You played Broadway, you played the artist, and now obviously you started as an instructor, a teacher.
yeah, all this time I've been teaching. I mean, you know, and that goes back to my dad, like my mom was saying, like, you know, get your degree in education. And, you know, I always was teaching, even when I was probably in freshman in high school, sophomore in high school, and I was teaching kids in my neighborhood, you know, and just anybody, you know, little kids want to learn how to play the rudiments or whatever, because I was in drum corps. So I was always teaching. I knew teaching would always be a part of what I would do, and I just wanted to be good at it, and I wanted to learn how to teach, philosophy of education, the psychology of it, but just also the pedagogy. I've always been into pedagogy and history, and like how we're standing on each other's shoulders, and how learning how this group affected this, who learned from this guy, who learned from that guy. It was really, really, you know, and for drums, that's really important, for any instrument, but for drums in particular, to try to cop the feel. You have to listen. You have to go back and really, really visit those places musically and really listen to the music. So I was always teaching. I learned from great teachers, and so I knew I would always teach, and I love teaching. I love doing it. And Rob asked me to make Rob Wallace, one of the first videos, instructional videos called Snare Drum Rudiments, which came out about 1987. And so I know thousands of drummers learned their rudiments watching that video. So
there you go. What are you doing now as far as education and teaching now?
Well, this whole thing has really, you know, I always had a nice, you know, local Jersey base and some in the city of students, but this whole thing has put everybody on Zoom, like what we're doing, you know, and it's worked out, you know, I have to say pretty well. I mean, I have about 18 hours of students a week from all over. I just picked up a new student from Liverpool, actually, last week. And so I'm always gaining new students, and I'm pretty structured. I do the same things that I do. I have a little practice pad set up here, but I'm building a new studio next door in my house here that's going to be up and running in about a month or so. So, but I've been teaching a lot every week, and that's been kind of not missed a beat, fortunately. And, you know, the people paying either through Venmo or Zelle or something like that. Sure. And so it's worked out. I have to say, just continue to knock on wood that it continues to be that way, because I think we've reached a new paradigm that, you know, even when people start getting back together again, there's still going to be this online thing. So those who are kind of pulled kicking and screaming into this online lesson thing, guess what? It's here. You have to deal and make it work for yourself, you know, the best you can.
Well, that's great with adapting. There's one more topic I want to talk about. You're being a product designer, because you said
yes,
practice pad. I hope you brought it with you today.
I did.
You
Wait
did?
1 second.
Well, you were warming up before we started. I know that, right?
I was. I'm always warming up. And there it is. So it's called the Drumeo P4 practice pad. It's been on the market for a bunch of years now, and I do a lot of lessons. I did a lot of live lessons for Drumeo from my other studio that I was in for a whole year. Every Friday I would do live lessons. So I've been involved with Drumeo and Jared and those guys for a while, and so when I designed this pad, originally it was with Ludwig, and I let that contract die, and I wanted to have it made here in the States. So this is made in the United States, and it's a pretty diverse practice pad. It's not your normal. As you can see, it's 3 different levels, and the top is 4 different rubbers. This is a really hard rubber, like a cymbal.
Right.
This is a little bit softer, like a tom-tom. That's really soft, like a floor tom. And this is your normal gum rubber. So it kind of emulates a little mini drum set and kind of moving around, so it's not just a one level. So this pad sells all over the world. It's done really well. So I have a manufacturer in Kentucky that I use that makes this pad, and I get paid. I'm on salary, so I get a weekly check from this guy, based on the amount of sales, the orders that are put in. So I'm fortunate that way that I've kind of set this up for the long haul.
So let me ask you, it looks like such a simple thing. There's practice pads all over. What is the levels, obviously,
that's the difference.
You came up with that idea?
Yeah. So that idea came through teaching, because I would take one practice pad and put another one on a stand right above it so that I can get a 2-surface thing going on if I was teaching a class. So if I was doing coordination, I just put one pad on top of the other. Then the brain started going about, how can I design a practice pad and make it 2 levels? Well, we made 2 levels at first, and that was cool. I said, well, maybe we can cut it into 3, and we did more prototyping.
That's beautiful, man. So you're an inventor. There you go.
So a little bit of an inventor, and then also that's selling. That's doing really good. So that income has been pretty steady, and I have a video out, and of course it's DVD that's been out for a long time. Hands, Grooves, and Fills. That's on Hudson Music, and it's also on digital through Drumeo as well. And then I designed ride cymbal for Zildjian, the organic ride.
Oh yeah.
And that's actually, I just got off the phone with Sarah from Zildjian last week. She goes, it's been 5 years already that the cymbal's been out, so we're re-upping the contract for the organic ride from Zildjian. I designed that with the help of Paul Francis there from Zildjian, and
what makes it an organic ride?
I came up with the name Organic Ride just because it's one of those things where you're trying to figure out a sound that you have in your head. So I was playing one kind of ride that was a little bit drier, and then I had another one that was a little bit more washy, but the one that was washier didn't have a great bell. So I asked Paul if we can mush these 2 cymbals together and have a 21-inch ride cymbal, had good articulation, but you can still crash it like a crash ride, but had a really solid bell that was separated from the cymbal. And that's a lot to ask, but he did it. It took us, probably it was in design and prototypes for 2, 3, 4 years, and then finally they used to sell the prototypes. The prototypes were selling great, and he said, hey, we want to put this in a line and actually put it to market. And that was really an exciting moment when that happened. So it's still available. It's a 21-inch organic ride from Zildjian.
So you have quite a few products going now.
A few different things.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man.
You have to, I think, to be viable in the industry, I think you have to, again, education, and I just want to impart this one thing. People have now with Instagram and people putting these quick videos out there and, hey, dig me. Here's a free video. You got to find a way to monetize that, because now look at this. You put all of this hundreds of videos for free out there. Don't you wish you could have got even $1 for some of those videos? You know, so it's a whole new world out there. That's why it's like, you know, putting stuff out there to get recognized is great. That's one thing. But how do you monetize that? How do you, because ultimately, if you're in the industry, you have to be in the industry and make a living.
Of course. Get paid for what you love doing, right?
And what you're good at. I mean, you got some good content, put a value on it. You know, I think people are getting a little bit more hip to that and saying there's, you know, either Patreon, I think there's a website out there, or they pass a bucket where you can donate whatever you want. If you like this clip, here's my Venmo. Give me what you want. I mean, that's cool. You should have been doing that a while ago, you know.
Buskers, like the old buskers, right? You got to put the take care.
Busker, absolutely.
Wow.
So I just think we have to be smarter about your value and your worth as a musician and artist in terms of the content that you do put out there. Not everybody's going to have 1 million YouTube followers or 500,000 YouTube followers, you know, to monetize. And even that is not going to be much. So, I mean, just have a value of your worth of what you do, either your website or people, a paid subscription site or pay per download site. If it was 99 cents, $1.99 or something, and putting stuff out there for free is only going to make it less, and it's my contention, it sort of devalues what you do.
So to start wrapping up, the main reason I got you to quarantine interviews, and we were talking about, you know, the pandemic. Do you think now we're really getting oversaturated? Because now everybody is putting their video of them playing, and they're, so to speak.
In some ways, yeah, I think in some ways, but I also think it's great because I love seeing the new videos now, which I'm going to start doing once the studio's done, the compilations of somebody putting, you know, a groove down and somebody putting bass on and keyboards, and we're actually making music with this. You know, I'm sick of the dig me videos. I'm so over that, you know.
Was I mean, after a while, it's like, all right, yeah, next.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like, you know, a little bit oversaturated. So creativity and making videos is important, but, you know, originality to a certain point, but, you know, we're always reinventing the wheel, right? So, but I like the collaboration videos that are out there that are good. But I think this is where we are. I think this is, this whole thing has really put a pinpoint on it, say, hey, we're in this new paradigm now. I'm hoping the live thing starts to come back around. I was reading an article from the gentleman from City Winery who just built a brand new facility and can't even open it. Wow. I mean, that's real heavy. And it's supposedly a beautiful place, but hopefully we'll get back to that even in some modified way, but just monetize in some way. And you know what, people who watch these, if you appreciate it, then you should, you know, look, if you're sitting there for 20 minutes watching this video, or 15 or 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, and you learn something from that, what is that worth to you?
Well, we'll see that after we put your video on. See how much they learn.
We'll see.
All the money in. No.
We'll see. Well, I mean, something like this is different, but I mean, like an instructional thing, like everybody's a teacher these days now, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Say that again?
Everybody's a teacher now, sort of.
Right.
I mean, it's good. I mean, you know, but, you know, also be careful where you get your information.
True. All right. So that's terrific. So to wrap it up, give us your last inspiration about where we are now, where we went, and, you know, the future. And we'll wrap this up because it's been a terrific interview. Oh,
thank you, man. First, thanks for having me. It was great that we connected again last summer when we played together in Jersey. That was great. It was great to reconnect. But thanks for having me on here. I just want to tell everybody to stay positive. I want everybody to celebrate your successes. Okay, because it's very easy to dwell on the negative and to dwell on things that don't go well. Celebrate things that go well, and that'll make the things that don't go well seem a little less important. You know, whether you're learning something new, you know, when I tell my students you're doing something new, you may have done it for the first time, you'll do it 8 times wrong and and the other 2 times right, but you focus on the 2 times that you did right and pull from that. And then that ratio is going to flip around. And that happens with life too. And to stay positive and focused and roll with the punches. I mean, us musicians, Al, as you know, we're just going from not just from gig to gig, but situation to situation, and you roll with it, and you make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what, and you do the best you can. So I just want to say God's blessing to everybody. Stay strong and positive. PatPetrillomusic.com is my website. Follow me at Pat P Drummer.
Great.
On Instagram, of course, on Facebook, you'll find me, and just all my good friends that I haven't seen for a while. Man, stay safe. Everybody out in the Broadway world, I hope everything gets back to normal for you and your gigs and everything else, and these shows start happening again, and New York City starts popping again. I'm looking forward to that. So.
That's great. Pat, I like to say it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Your energy is so positive, and even those last words, so much encouragement for the betterment of players, but of humanity too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're really such a positive guy.
Thank you, bro.
Really an entrepreneur in the music world, because you are a player. You play to many different things. You're doing inventing. You're throwing the baton onto the next guys by educating it, and it is so important to educate everybody.
For sure.
And I just want to say it's really been a pleasure. I wish you all well. I wish your family well and success, and
thank you.
Godspeed as we get towards the end of this, which I'm hoping, but it still might take a while to go back to what is a norm, but maybe there's a new norm ahead.
It'll be a new norm.
Pat Petrillo, thank you so much for being with us.
Peace and love.
Everybody out there, thank you again for listening. My name is Alan Cohen, and this was the Quarantine Interviews. Thank you.